Hello, my name's Dick Forbes.
And I'm Cindy Smith. I almost missed my cue. It's like, where am I? Who am I? It's the beginning of a cold, cold day today. And so I'm waking up my brain. Dick, it's good to be here. And we're talking today on Today's Families about an interesting subject and one that Dick thought about. We actually did it at one time, and it was our practice because the recording kind of messed up. So this is our second attempt to talk about lying.
So maybe we got it better today.
Well, and I think so, because I've been thinking about it, and I think that everybody struggles with this to some degree. What do you think, Dick?
I think so. You know, it's almost like we rationalize it sometime. Well, you know, I had a good reason for lying. I didn't want to hurt their feelings, or, you know, the truth was going to kill them, or whatever it may be. So we kind of justify it sometimes, and you know, we rationalize it and make excuses for it. Or we think, well, it's different when I do it, you know, if we're kind of more narcissistic, you know, in nature. But, yeah, I think it's something that's been around since the beginning of time, you know, when Adam and Eve were in the garden with God, and, you know, they kind of kept passing the buck. And why were they hiding? Why were they being deceitful with God? Because they were afraid, you know. And a lot of times we lie because we're afraid. We're afraid of consequences. We'll talk about that more in a minute, too. But there was a study done, too, that I thought was pretty interesting. There was 257 participants in this. Average age was 40, and the range was from 18 to 73. Some college education, most were full-time employed. And these were the results about this. About 1/3 of the participants said they told 3 to 7 lies per week. Majority, however, claimed to tell 2 or fewer lies a week. Regarding lies told on the past 6 months, most reported lying for altruistic reasons or secretive reasons. It was 64% altruistic, 60% for secretive reasons. About half the lie to avoid negative evaluation, 43% for social reasons, and 40% to avoid punishment. And then it goes on, a smaller proportion claimed they lied to present themselves in a positive light, 37%. Impulsiveness and carelessness was about 21%. Gain reward was 21%. To protect themselves was 22%. And for no good reason and out of compulsion, 11%. And then 9% enjoyed conning people that were there. So that's pretty interesting, you know, that those kind of statistics about, you know, why we lie. And so
it's all about kind of avoidance, isn't it?
Very much so.
Not wanting to face the music, not wanting to, even in your own heart.
Yeah.
What was the con at the end? That was a small...
It was 9%, just they get pleasure out of conning people.
Yeah, lying and seeing what they'll do.
Exactly, manipulation, making fools of other people kind of thing, you know. You know, you see it in movies, you see it in sitcoms, you know, where people lie to get them into trouble, and, you know, just because they don't want to tell them the truth. But it's 9% out of the population is pretty big con artists that are out there.
Yeah, and that's a little, you know.
Right.
I guess it's a little surprising just because that's not my world. But what is my world is trying not to hurt people's feelings.
Yeah. And I think, you know, if you have a conscience and if you got a kind heart, the tendency is avoidance. There was an old commercial, I think it was a Geico commercial with Abraham Lincoln and Mary Todd, his wife, and, you know, Honest Abe, you know, and she comes in and she goes, well, does this make my bottom look big? And he's kind of hemming and hawing, you know, and doesn't want to tell a lie, and so she storms off. But you know, it's that kind of thing where we really don't want to hurt people's feelings that we care about. And, you know, brings up the question, though, from a biblical perspective, how are we to address this as Christians? You know, what is our approach about lying? I mean, one of the 10 Commandments is what?
Do not lie.
Don't lie, yeah.
And it's in that section of the horizontal relationships, you know, the way we treat others. And so if the scripture says, do not lie, then there's evidence that would hurt someone.
Right. That
would damage a relationship.
Right.
Maybe it's even the opposite of love.
Could be.
I don't know. But yeah, the do not lie is very clear. And you teach your children, you know, do not lie.
Well, there's three types of lies I think that we tell. One is lying by omission. There's some truth in it, but we omit the whole truth. Then we lie by commission, which is there's absolutely no truth in it whatsoever. And then I think the big lie that a lot of us have told in the past is what we call lying by assent, ASSENT, and that is telling people what they want to hear. The adolescent tells his parents, yeah, I'll do my homework, yeah, I'll take the garbage out, yeah, I'll brush my teeth, it's that we lie by assent to get people off our back, to quit being angry. So we tell them what they want to hear many times and don't follow through on it, or we haven't done it like we said we had. And some people that are people pleasers will lie by assent because they don't want anybody upset with them. They'll tell the group of people they're with a lie about maybe their real values and beliefs, maybe about politics or religion or something, just to get along, because they don't want anybody upset with them. And so we do that, and so we get into a crowd of people that we may have different values, different belief systems with, and we'll lie just to fit in with a crowd.
It's kind of the opposite of authenticity, just being your true self all the time.
Right.
And that's hard to be. That's one of my value words, is to be authentic.
Yeah.
And yet it's a struggle when it comes to being authentic with, not maybe being forthright, maybe. So all those things kind of fall into this, doesn't it? You said something. It reminded me of a Bible story about the dad with two sons, and he asked the first son to do something,
right? And
the first son said no.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And then the second son said, "Sure, I'll do it,"
but didn't do it.
And then in the end, the other son.
Right.
Actually did it.
Right.
That's kind of an example.
That's a good example. It's a perfect example. I think what's below most of our lying is fear. Fear of consequences, fear of somebody being upset with us, fear of being evaluated, fear of whatever it may be. And so, if we look below the motivation of lying, many, many times it's fear. That, I don't want to get in trouble, I don't want to get slammed, I don't want to get caught. And pride's another issue why we lie. I don't want to look bad. I want people to think well of me. I want people to have a bigger than life thought of me. So we try to control the narrative with people too, which you could ultimately say is back down to fear also. Fear of not being well thought of, fear of not being evaluated well. So,
yeah, I've had to learn that. Dick, and it's not easy, especially if you go to church. You have a lot of people that know you as a Christian, and then something in your life happens that's maybe it wasn't a decision that you made, but it affects you, and it looks like, for instance, what if it was a child that went wayward, and you feel so responsible for that? And then you feel like, well, I'm going to have to be with my church people, and they're going to look down on this because my child, and so you have a choice to make at that point, which is to be vulnerable and say, this is not, I'm hurting, and my child, or whatever the situation might be, or maybe I'm facing a divorce, and you just don't, and sometimes it's not just lying or wanting to not tell the truth. Sometimes it's isolation.
Right.
Because you don't want to face the people. And so I'm really trying to understand in my own life with my own pain how to be with people that may not have experienced that pain. Maybe it's addiction or, because we don't understand each other's pain.
Right.
And it's real easy at that point to say a lie, to say everything's great, God bless you, when everything really is broken and in pain. So as believers, I think it's really important for us to look at this and to go back to authenticity and remember to battle the fear.
No, I think you're spot on with that too. And it's unfortunate. And I think to move forward with some predicament like that, I have to find people that are safe. People that, and it may just be 1, 2, 3 people at the most. It's not going to be a whole church body. And unfortunately, churches cannot be safe places, their kids are all acting out, stay away from them. Their marriage is about to tank and don't want to be around them. So, and you're right. If I can't come and be vulnerable at a place like that, then the tendency is to hide, or to tell people what they want to hear, or to tell part of the truth but not the whole truth, kind of thing. Again, what does it go back down to? Fear.
Yeah.
Fear of what? Fear of being judged, fear of being criticized, fear of being rejected.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Very good.
No, those are two great points about the two sons, and then unfortunately, many times at church that.
And I'm all for church. Don't get
Oh
me
yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
But we forget that it's a place for the wounded and the hurting, and
Right.
not the perfect.
Right.
So.
And even within the church body, there are people that are safe. So you got to find those people.
Absolutely.
That will take secrets to the grave with you that you just don't want repeated and everything. Well, let's talk about what motivates.
Okay.
Our lying that's there.
All right, Dick. We've got several here. Motivation to lie, and so we're going to cover those. So hang on for the ride. One of the motivations is avoid negative evaluation, which we've kind of talked about. We don't want people to think bad of us.
Exactly. And so we will present a narrative that's really not real truthful of our lives. And I don't know about you, but when I've been around somebody that is just flat dab honest about where they are in life, I'm drawn to that person, because I realize here's a person who maybe has struggled and been through pain. I may not have the same pain, but they make me comfortable in the sense that I can be myself around this person. But if I find somebody that's totally got their act together in every aspect of their life, I can't relate, And so we do that to avoid that negative evaluation that's there. And so we try to find those people that are genuine, that aren't trying to present themselves something that they're not. And really they're kind of alienating people from themselves. Whereas the person who, is broken, then those of us who have been through brokenness, we're attracted to those people. We're drawn to those people. And especially from a more biblical perspective, that, we relate to Job, And so I think we do to avoid the negative evaluations in our life, just again to try to control that narrative, which is what? Goes back to fear of judgment.
Yeah, it's hard.
But it's amazing, says at the end time we're all going to stand before God. Everything's going to be known.
Yeah. The light will definitely penetrate all the darkness.
Right. I just hope they don't have movies up there, Let's play Forbes' life.
Yeah. Cindy Smith wouldn't look so, yeah. Well, let's look at the next one, avoid punishment. And that's pretty.
Yeah, you find that with kids, a lot of times, that, I cleaned my room up. Yeah, I did my homework. Yeah, I brushed my teeth. Yeah, no, I didn't pick on them. Well, she started it or he started it, and on it goes. But the unfortunate thing, okay, that's childish behavior. And that is not adult behavior when we become adults, when we still lie to avoid punishment. We still throw people under the bus. We still blame other people and not take responsibilities for ourselves. And it's to avoid the punishment that's there. And I mean, just take our judicial system, for example. I can't remember the movie. I think it was an Eddie Murphy movie, 24 Hours, where he was let out of jail for 24 hours, and then an attorney comes in, there's a room full of guys that are in prison, and goes, how many of y'all are innocent? So they all scream, that they're all innocent, kind of thing. And but it's what we do to avoid the consequences of our behavior and things that we've done towards people. And again, fear of punishment that's there.
Could this, I know we're talking about lying, but if you hold on to this too long, don't you go to another refuge that will stop the pain? So you're lying to prevent pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
To prevent some type of inner response. Is that the same type of avoidance that maybe addicts or those of us
Oh,
that
yeah.
struggle, it's all about avoidance,
Right.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Or-
well, yeah, very much so. Because you think about let's take addiction, like you said. Well, how much do you drink? Oh, just a few. Well, how many is a few? Well, it's 3 or 4. Well, how many is it? 3 or 4? Well, it's a 6-pack. Well, how many 6-packs do you drink? Oh, just maybe 1 or 2. Well, which is it, 1 or 2? So it's this constant trying to minimize things too. I mean, they may agree with you. Yeah, I drink, but do I drink to excessiveness? And I try to minimize it, telling you what you want to hear to avoid the negative evaluation, possibly avoid punishment that's there too, that begins to take place. You remember the story of, I don't know if he was Abraham yet. He might have been Abram and Sarai when they were in the king's place, and he told that Sarah was his sister. And the king of that pagan country was more righteous than Abraham was there, because he confronted Abraham. He said, look, I was about to commit something that was horrible in the eyes of God. And so even great saints, like Abram and Abraham and, that we admire, how many religions came out of Abraham's life? Well, 3. Yeah. Christianity, Judaism, and Muslim. So, here was this great patriarch, but he was human.
Yeah. And it was all about avoidance.
Yeah.
And he kind of justified it because she was his half-sister somehow, right?
I don't know.
Yeah. So he justified, it was kind of a partial, but she was his wife, and that's what he denied, to avoid.
And you're right, he did rationalize it too. So we're hitting all of them today.
Yeah, get them.
Hey, we're good.
What about heightened self-presentation?
Well, again, do I lie to impress people? Do I build myself up bigger than life? Do I tell people, things that just aren't true? Or do I exaggerate? Or do I amplify something that was this big and I make it this big? So we do those things sometimes to make ourselves look good in front of an individual or a crowd. And when we do, and people find out about us, then we've really got a price to pay. Either own it, or I flee that group of people or that person and go find another group that I can build myself up in front of, that I make myself bigger than life. And when we do that, we're not reading the room. In other words, when we come in and we begin to go this way and talk all this kind of stuff and everything, we're not reading people. We think we are manipulating people, but people are out there that can kind of see through it many times, and so they kind of roll their eyes and think, So to be an authentic person, I've also got to learn to read the room too. Not everybody's glad to see me when I walk into the room. Party doesn't necessarily start when I show up.
It doesn't?
No.
Oh, wow. I'll have to remember that next time.
But we do that to make ourselves look good.
Yeah, we do, and it's. I think it kind of stems too from just maybe not self-awareness, not really knowing ourselves, which means, we need to take time to figure out ourselves and know ourselves, and that's another show.
Right.
But anyway, obtain a reward.
We will lie to get something. There's a payoff in there. And you got to understand that about lying. There's always a payoff of some sort in there. And what is that payoff? Avoidance of punishment, make myself look bigger, obtain a reward. My oldest son is disabled. He's 35, and we used to do Special Olympics, and we did golf, and it was down in Albany. They were having the Special Olympics golf tournament down in Albany, and hooked up with this other dad and his kid. Well, this dad cheated like crazy. And I thought, it's Special Olympics. Everybody wins. And he would, I'd count his shots, because I didn't at first, but then about third or fourth hole, this guy's knocking off a few shots right there. So, but if I'm that desperate to obtain an award, and that was kind of sad, in that situation. But whatever the reward, like I said, what is the payoff that I'm getting out of lying? There's always a payoff for lying, and a lot of times it's, like I said, to control the narrative, what people think of me.
But Dick, eventually it's going to be found out. So You're not really controlling it.
No. And there's some people who get away with things in life. They are, but one day they will be found out. So.
Yeah. What about compulsive lies?
These are people who've just kind of gone down that path where it's a habit. They lie about stupid stuff that doesn't matter. So, I mean, just simple things like, why'd you lie to me about that, And so they've gotten so caught up in that compulsion that it really becomes part of their character, their nature. It's a bad habit that they've gotten into. And thinking that they have to lie about everything or exaggerate about everything or tell people what they want to hear about everything. But it's there with some people that they are just compulsive liars about things.
Is it where they just don't realize they're doing it?
Oh, yeah. They know they're doing it. They're not, aware of them, but it doesn't mean anything to them. It doesn't bother them.
It doesn't bother them that they might be hurting someone or...
Not with compulsive liars, because again, who's it about?
Themselves.
About me,
Yeah.
And I think the number one problem in relationships that we have is there's too much of me in the relationship. That gets me into trouble. My relationship with God, when there's too much of me in my relationship with God, then it gets me into trouble. That's what lying does. There's too much of me in the relationship that I'm trying to control.
And even in marriage?
Even in marriage, when there's too much of me in that relationship, that, it's about service to other people. It's about service to my spouse, about service to God, That's when I get too much of me out of the way.
Yeah.
And sometimes God has his way of getting us out of the way.
Yeah, it's usually pretty painful.
Yeah.
We've got to face the music. And,
Yeah.
and really, you want to face it because it will hopefully, scuff off any kind of lying that you might be doing, and it helps you face reality and points. But, I mean, this is for, I mean, I'm saying they who lie, but I mean, this is all of us. All of us struggle with these things.
Yep.
So what about carelessness, just being careless?
Well, carelessness is just not using your head, not thinking. We don't think through the consequences of telling this lie. So there's carelessness that's out there. It kind of fits in that compulsion behavior that, a lie is a lie is a lie is a lie, and they just keep it going and, they just really don't use their brain at all. It's more of an emotional reaction and not a rational reaction to the situation that's there. And it gets them into a boatload of trouble. You said something just a second ago about that it's all of us. I can't remember if I mentioned this on here before, but Adolf Eichmann, who was the architect of the Holocaust, he escaped Germany after World War II and ended up down in Argentina. Well, Simon Wiesenthal, the great Nazi hunter, caught him back in the 60s, and they brought him back to Israel and tried him and executed him. But they had to have eyewitnesses of what Eichmann did. And there was this, I can't remember the guy's name, but he came in, and when he walked into the courtroom, and Eichmann was sitting behind this glass cage, this witness just collapsed on the floor and just was wailing, crying and everything. And so a few years later after all this, Mike Wallace interviewed him on 60 Minutes. And he showed him the clip about him collapsing in the courtroom, and he said, was that just about the painful memories and this kind of stuff? And he said, no, it was nothing like that. He said, when I saw Eichmann up there, I saw myself, and I saw that I was capable of doing what he did. And so you're right, we're all capable. We just don't know the circumstances. That's the human heart that's just, we struggle with. Now, there may be some people sitting out there today going, I'd never lie. I'd never do that to anybody. Well, in thought, it's great, but we don't know ourselves until we get in those situations.
No, we get in those tough spots.
Yeah.
You know what we'll do.
Yeah, and so we may lie, to save our hide. And we may lie to save somebody else. We may lie because of some severe consequences about something. I used to go downtown Atlanta and feed the homeless for about 10 years. And I remember meeting this woman down there one time. And I knew most of the people that came down there, and I didn't recognize her. And she said, well, I just wanted to check out this Christianity thing. I said, really? I said, well, how'd you end up here? And she goes, well, my boss comes down here, and I knew who her boss was. And she said that she did something at work that should have cost her her job. And she said in the past, many people have taken credit for her work, but nobody's ever taken responsibility for her work. Well, her boss took the hit. And he took it that, ultimately he was responsible, but she goes into his office one day and says, I just got to ask you one question, why did you do that? And he, typical male, it's no big deal, don't worry about it. Well, typical woman, I want to know. So, and so he said, I'll tell you this, and I'll tell you this once. I'm a Christian. And he said, I had to do that because of what Christ did for me. And so, here is somebody that could have easily passed the buck, lied about it, taken credit, not taking credit. And I thought, that's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. And she said, I had to check out this Christianity thing. So she was down there feeding the homeless with us one Sunday. I don't think she ever came back, but I don't think it was her cup of tea. But I don't know what happened to her. But I thought, what an incredible story.
Yeah.
What an absolutely incredible story.
And he spoke truth.
Yeah. And he could have lost his job. It could have set his career back for taking responsibility too. So,
Gosh, I don't know if we can get off through all these.
That's all right.
Let's go through secretive lies.
Well, secretive lies is I just to conceal something I don't want anybody to know about in my life. Cindy, we both do. You do coaching and I do counseling. I mean, people will come to see us and they'll just lie. I think, well, you're kind of wasting your money. But it happens all the time. And you think, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, we want to protect some things. And I know we all have secrets that we're ashamed of. And there's an old saying in AA that says we're as sick as our secrets are. And I think that to be very true, because if I don't ever deal with those deep, dark secrets that need to be dealt with, they're going to come out somewhere in my life. They're going to bite me somewhere down the road.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. Let's go on down to the pro-social lives.
Well, pro-social lives is to bring. I'm doing it for the good of everybody. Good, good for you, good for me, good for my friends that I lie about certain things. And so I'm again, but it's going to come back to haunt me down the road. Well, why don't you tell us that? Well, I just want all the element to feel good.
Yeah, and you know what, Dick? It breaks trust. And trust is the bottom line for every relationship. Yeah. And lying just breaks trust.
Well, think about it. Here's the question then. Why do we tell our kids Santa Claus is real? Pro-social, right?
Yeah.
We want them excited. We were excited when we were kids,
Yeah.
And,
That's right.
But it's true. I mean,
it's cultural, too.
No, my kids had to find out on their own. But I didn't, but I told them they was real. So, but why? It was, I wanted the pleasure. I wanted their enjoyment, their excitement that you see, those kind of things. But that's a pro-social, analogy.
Yeah. And that's another show too with anyway. I'm thinking of lots of things in my head about things we could talk about, Dick, but we only have just a moment here. How would you like to wrap this up?
Well, wrap it up in a very simple fashion is that it's something, one, that we're all capable of. And to say that I would never do that, one, I've got to have a realistic view of myself and my heart. Two, if you're caught up in it, deal with it. Start working on it. Become an honest person. Proverbs said, that nothing's more valuable than a good reputation, than an honest man. Silver and gold doesn't even compare to it, but having that good reputation, because that's important. You don't be known as somebody who lies all the time about stuff. And I think, if you're in that boat, then reach out. Start getting some help with it. Making yourself accountable would be a good place to start.
Yeah. Thank you, Dick. Well, I'm very, very grateful for the time that you've taken to think about this, and I'm hoping that somebody out in TV land or YouTube land,
wherever we are,
wherever we are, is touched today, and something stood out to you, and maybe you got a little nugget that you can chew on and work on as you build honesty and authenticity in your life, which will bring trust to your relationships. Okay. I guess we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. God bless.